Hello, addicts. I'm Michael,
And I'm Josh.
and today we will be reviewing Steins Gate. Steins Gate is a 2011 anime, and it's resurfaced as a popular show in this season as there is a continuation or a prequel being aired. So today, Josh will be giving y'all the plot summary.
Okay, so basically, guys, to give it to you cut and dry without any spoilers, the story basically kicks off by introducing a mad scientist named Ocarine who experiences a deja vu like moment during his day where he not only experiences similar things, but he notices small details that are changed or even some big things that are completely different than what he remembers. So, to kind of investigate and try to figure out what's going on, he enlists his own genius as well as his lab members to try to figure out what is exactly causing this, which in his basically journey, he figures out that he is the only person capable of saving the world from a future crises. And throughout the series, he'll basically faced against space and time to try to save the not only future of the world, but also the people that are closest to him.
Well, let's continue the discussion talking about characters.
So I guess I'll basically start with some of the characters I really liked. Obviously, the main protagonist, Ocarine, is probably my favorite character to watch throughout the entire show. He's just got like such charisma with his that he shows with his other lab mates, and also, I mean, his journey is so bipolar. I mean, he goes through these funny moments, he goes through these psychotic moments, he goes through these completely like heart wrenching sad moments, and so he's got a lot of spectrum about his character that he can show realistically because of the situations he's put in. Obviously, we got to put in Doot to Doot
Yeah,
girl.
that's her name for the rest of this. If you
Yeah,
you can look it up. She's got black hair. She's one of the main
uh,
characters, so that's her name.
I was trying to remember right
I
now,
think
and I
it's
can't.
Mayori.
Yeah, Mayori.
Mayori.
You're right. Okay, but yeah, she was a great character too. I think not she didn't serve as like a comic relief. I guess more of like a lighthearted relief whenever there was turmoil or something going on. She did really well and like kind of like bunching you back so you didn't feel like a bunch of emotions all at once. Also, pretty much all of his lab members have a component that is really key to the story and also a different aspect that you enjoy watching. Like, for instance, there's this one chick that he basically comes across on the street, I believe, and she doesn't talk at all, and she's very mysterious. And for most of the show, you don't really know much about her. And it's kind of just different things like that all throughout the characters. But I would say top three at least is Ocarine, Do To Do Girl, and
Mayori, yeah.
probably I would. It's really hard, but I probably would have to say the store assistant, like the super assassin chick. I mean, she's
Yes.
like, I mean, that's not a spoiler. That's just what we called her
Yeah. Yeah.
because, yeah, I mean,
She's got that kind of
vibe.
vibe.
Again, she's got a mysterious vibe, but she says things that you're kind of like, hmm, that's not what a normal person that would say. But anyway, Michael, what were some of your favorite characters or like aspects about them?
So I did like the main character. As Josh was talking about, he does shift from like kind of crazy to like really crazy
Hmm.
to adorable in some of the some of the things he says. It's great.
Christina.
Yeah, that's the famous line there. Christina, which is not her name, but it's close enough. It's good for him for like all of the show, so I'll give her that name. Christina, she's good. She's a good character. Super smart. For anime fans out there, she's a tsundere, but I would say she's not super stereotypical, and that's not like all of her character. So I did like what she brought to the table, and later on with the twists and turns in the anime, I think it really paid off. The characters that they developed really paid off towards the end of the show.
Yeah, and like it's hard. Like the only reason why I didn't probably put her in like my top three was mainly just because I was really playing on the stereotypes of like what they show you most characters are. But like actually, she really is a interesting character, and she does have a huge point or like a huge presence in moving the plot forward and adding more aspects to it. And she's got a lot of depth too, as you'll see by the end of the show.
So next, we should probably talk about some of the favorite moments. Try to keep some of the scenes vague, just so those who don't want any spoilers can continue watching. So what was your one of your favorite moments, Josh?
Oh man, like there's so many good like moments that I really enjoyed. I would say as like a vague type of one, I would say a lot of the moments that get kind of erased, I guess you would say, those have like a lot of depth that adds to Okarin's character, but doesn't really affect the story in like how it flows into the next segment. Because like as you would expect from dealing with Chime Tables, some moments happen that don't necessarily carry over to the end. And also, I would say probably a lot of the parts that I really liked was like the spreading comedy here and there, like basically just like some of the, like we said before, like some of the things he would say to like some of his lab mates. Like there was like one where he like they basically him and like Ocarina and Christina have like this kind of like little experience thing where they call each other perverts, and it's just something that I find funny, and it's like a running gag. Like they actually go with it, and it becomes like their lab's inside joke. And there's a lot of moments like that that I do really enjoy. As far as like a story standpoint, there's a lot of things that in the story I like that they did, and I liked how they executed it. Um, Without going too in depth with that and not rattling on too much, I would say definitely the ending is one of those things that one of those moments that I really did enjoy, both in like how they executed it and just as a finale, how they finished it up.
I also liked, I won't give specifics here to avoid spoilers, but I also like some of the death scenes, and how those,
Yeah.
how some of the, even more generally, how some of the characters, like their arc ended. So they would
Right.
go and you think you know who they were, there'd be a shift, there'd be a change, there'd be many timelines in which you'd figure out more about the person, and then the end arc would be satisfying.
Right.
Um,
And another thing that kind of adds on to that is the show does a really good job of throwing you off. So, like, when we were watching it, we watched it with another one of our friends too that you might see future on the channel. We had a lot of theories about when, with certain characters, especially when they were first introduced. And a lot of times, well, not all the time, but there was some moments that were like, we actually predicted it right. But there was several times throughout the show that they kind of switch it and you're like, well, I don't know, like that doesn't really fit now. And then but then when you go back and like and you finally come full circle to the very end, you're like, dang it, I had that feeling and I was right. But then they have things that are totally opposite to that. They have ones that completely flip it on its head and you're like, oh, I didn't expect it to go that route. So that's a really cool aspect of the show, that it can be both predictable and not predictable at the same time and kind of balance that really well.
So, to continue what you're talking about the ending, I think so. This Steins Gate really isn't a romance show. It's more of like a thriller, I would say.
Yeah.
There are romance elements, as pretty much there are in most animes, but I think the ending, some endings drag on for too long, and I think this ending was just about right, where it was satisfying. You got an arc for all the characters, and we didn't have to watch them like walk into the sunset for like 10 minutes. It was a good ending.
Yeah, because the ending, definitely the core of the ending takes place all in one episode, but they don't spend too long focusing on parts that you know don't matter as much, or at least that you don't feel that sense of like, oh crap, they spent so much time on this that they're not gonna be able to bring it to a ending that makes you feel completely give a lot of closure. And so that was a cool aspect. Like Michael said, it didn't drag on, but they still gave you enough that you felt completely satisfied with the ending. I'll just go ahead and like maybe give a spoiler warning here in case one of us messes up. Going into my speculation, I think it's probably going to focus on lines that we haven't seen at all. It's probably going to be the timelines that lead up to the events that we were told about that happened in the original series. For instance, uh, it's probably like my guess would probably be that Christina is not in the show, and because it says that it's on the verge of World War III, which I don't see how Christina could be filled into this timeline with that aspect unless they change something. Another speculation, maybe not a speculation because I don't know if they're going to do it, but something I hope I see at least at one point, as I really hope we see the Ocarina that was in the original Steins Gate, at least his memory pop up in this one, maybe for like a brief episode or something like that, and the characters are just like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And then like it figures out that like it was only for an instant, and like the one that we started with in this news show comes back, and then they're just like, "Oh, I don't know what happened."
Yeah.
But I'll let you go over
Yeah,
that.
I was just
See
gonna
if you want.
say, just in general, I hope it's a little bit darker. Not so much that I didn't like the tone, and it wasn't dark enough in the original. I just kind of, if we're gonna do a prequel, let's make it even darker. Just cause I think that
And
would work really
I
well.
feel like that's pretty spot on because with the world line that we're supposedly getting for the base of this show, it seems like there will be a lot of stuff that goes wrong. There will be a lot. It will be like the darkest outcome that could have happened in all of their lives. So, which it'll probably have a good balance. Like we'll probably see um, maybe the I'm having a lapse on the guy's name, but the super hacker,
Yes.
his friend lab assistant, will probably see maybe his love interest in this show. I guess it just depends. Speculation wise, it's basically open to how far in the timeline they go. If it's just going to cover like the month span that basically the first show covered, or if it's going to go all the way into like the 2035. If they do go that route, or if it looks like we do from like the first episode, I'd love to see him eventually record the message that is sent back in the first show. I think that'd be a really cool way to tie them together because because they have a really interesting playground because it's a prequel and the events do happen before technically than the original show, but the way the time travel system works and everything, they could have segments of it that are set after the original show, which I think gives it a lot of possibilities. And again, like those speculation things are probably going to fall through as soon as we see the first episode and see basically what kind of take they're wanting to, in direction they're wanting to go with the show.
I guess we have to cover our recommendation. What would be your
Yes.
recommendation for this show?
Honestly, I really enjoyed this show. I don't know if I could put it in my top 5 shows that I've watched, and that's not because of the quality of the show. It's probably just my personal preference. Although I do really love thriller shows, and this is definitely a great example of what those shows can be when done right. And I would definitely say if you're anything of like a fan of like sci-fi thrillers, or maybe if like you like sci-fi horrors that don't have too like if you're okay with it not having a too heavy of a horror aspect, you would definitely like this show. And but I will say be prepared because it is a little bit more of a slow burn. So if you're not somebody that's really patient, or if you're not somebody that can pay attention to detail, you might not find it enjoyable or get easily lost in it. So in a way, I would say it's kind of for intellectuals, but don't take that seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone can watch the show. I think if you really want to like the show, you have to pay close attention. It's not, I don't, it'd be hard for a casual, someone who just wants to watch it casually. Yeah, it's a good show. You're gonna get, it's probably like a 7 out of 10 if you just watch it casually. But if you actually
Yeah.
look at all the theories, make theories yourself, come up with hypothesis for what's gonna happen next, who's gonna die, who's gonna survive, all that. I think it's a really good show, and I would recommend it to pretty much everyone if they like that genre and are willing to take some time, maybe write some notes during the episode and just enjoy it.
The only thing I'll close in that is I think something that Michael said that I want to capitalize on is this is a show that, at its best, viewing is done through somewhat rapid session. Like, I mean, like if you, that doesn't mean if you don't necessarily binge watch it all in like a day or two, you won't get it. But it is something that works a little bit better if you do it kind of on the regular. If you like maybe watch like an episode like every 2 weeks, you might forget some aspects that might be important to the plot later on. But yeah, that's basically the only other thing that I would say about this show. It's a really good watch, and we highly recommend it. And we are definitely going to try to watch the prequel show as soon as possible, and hopefully get a review to you guys pretty quickly. So this will definitely conclude our review of Steins Gate, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Later, Alex.